I'm Peter, 32 years old, and last month I thought I had it all figured out as a successful software engineer in Seattle. Then came my birthday morning. One notification changed everything. "No one's coming to your party, grow up," my mom texted in our family group chat. The words burned into my screen. I read it twice, replied with a single word, understood. Then I opened my banking app and canceled the $2,300 automatic payment for their rent. Some birthday gifts are for yourself. If you're watching this right now, let me know where you're tuning in from in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up to family who took you for granted. Trust me, you'll want to see how this unfolds. Growing up as an only child in suburban Chicago shaped my understanding of family in ways I'm still unpacking. Our house wasn't large, but it was in a good school district, which my mother Barbara never let me forget, was the sacrifice they made for my future. Dad Richard worked long hours at an insurance firm while Mom taught elementary school. We were solidly middle class, never wanting for necessities, but luxury items were rare and had to be earned. From my earliest memories, my relationship with Mom was complicated. Barbara was a woman of high expectations and even higher criticism. Nothing was ever quite good enough. An A- on a test would prompt questions about what I did wrong, rather than celebration for what I'd done right. Her love felt conditional, tied to achievement and appearances. Dad was the silent type, a man of few words, who came home tired and retreated to his recliner with the evening news. He rarely displayed affection openly, and when conflicts arose between Mom and me, he almost always sided with her. His standard line became, "Listen to your mother, Peter." Looking back, I wonder if he was just too exhausted to fight, or if he truly agreed with her approach. During my teenage years, I devoted myself to earning their approval. I joined every club, maintained a 4 gigapascals, and captained the debate team. I spent weekends volunteering at the local hospital, because Mom thought it would look good on college applications. My friends were hanging out at the mall or going to parties while I was building the perfect resume for a future I wasn't sure I wanted. The real tension began when I discovered my passion for computers and programming in 10th grade. I'd spend hours coding in my room, creating simple games and websites. Mom saw it as a distraction from real studying. Dad called it a hobby that wouldn't put food on the table. They had my future mapped out already, pre-med at Northwestern Medical School, at Johns Hopkins or Harvard, and then a prestigious practice back in Chicago. "Doctors and lawyers build legacies," Mom would say. "Computer people work in basements fixing printers." This was the early 2000s, before tech salaries exploded, and Silicon Valley CEOs became household names. To my parents, stability meant traditional professions, not this new digital frontier I was drawn to. When senior year arrived and college applications began, I made the decision that would fracture our relationship. I applied to computer science programs instead of pre-med. The argument that followed when they discovered my application still echoes in my memory. "We didn't sacrifice everything for you to waste your potential playing with computers," Mom screamed, her face flushed with anger. Dad stood behind her, arms crossed. "Son, reconsider this. We know what's best for your future." But I didn't back down. For the first time, I chose my path over their expectations. I was accepted to the University of Washington with a partial scholarship, and I announced I was moving to Seattle. Their response was swift and brutal. They refused to contribute a single dollar to my education. "If you're smart enough to make this decision against our wishes, you're smart enough to pay for it yourself," Mom declared. So that's what I did. I took out student loans, worked 20 hours a week at the campus IT help desk, and spent summers interning at tech companies instead of coming home. I ate ramen noodles and shared a cramped apartment with 3 other guys. But I was happy because I was following my passion. During those 4 years, communication with my parents was sparse and strained. They'd call occasionally, conversations filled with passive-aggressive comments about my computer hobby and questions about whether I'd come to my senses yet. Each holiday visit home felt like walking into a courtroom where I was perpetually on trial. Despite their lack of support, I thrived academically. I graduated summa cum laude. And more importantly, I secured a job at one of the top tech companies in Seattle, with a starting salary that surprised even me. The day I walked across the stage to receive my diploma, I searched the crowd for my parents' faces. They were there, but their expressions were unreadable. No pride, no joy, just a sense of obligation fulfilled. That night at dinner, instead of congratulations, Mom asked when I planned to apply to graduate school. A bachelor's degree isn't enough these days, she said, as if my achievement meant nothing. Dad nodded along, adding, "Medicine is still an option, you know." I realized then that nothing I accomplished on my chosen path would ever be enough for them. But I was just beginning to understand the depths of our dysfunctional relationship. The decade following college transformed my life in ways my parents never anticipated. While they expected me to struggle in my computer job, I thrived in Seattle's booming tech industry. Within 3 years, I had been promoted twice and was leading a team developing cloud security solutions. My salary had more than doubled, and the stock options I received became increasingly valuable as the company grew. By the time I turned 28, I had paid off my student loans, purchased a modern condo overlooking Lake Union, and started building a substantial investment portfolio. I traveled internationally for both work and pleasure, seeing parts of the world my parents had only dreamed about. My life in Seattle was comfortable, fulfilling, and entirely self-made. Meanwhile, things changed dramatically for my parents. Dad began experiencing heart problems in his late 50s, forcing him into early retirement. Their financial situation, which had always been stable but modest, suddenly became precarious. Mom continued teaching, but her salary alone wasn't enough to maintain their lifestyle. They had some savings, but medical bills quickly began to erode their nest egg. I learned about their struggles during a rare phone call when Mom actually asked how I was doing instead of criticizing my choices. After some hesitation, she mentioned Dad's health issues and their financial concerns. "We might need to downsize," she said, her voice uncharacteristically vulnerable. "The mortgage is underwater since the recession, and with Dad's medication costs." Something shifted in me during that conversation. Despite years of emotional distance and disapproval, they were still my parents. I had the means to help them, and part of me saw it as an opportunity to finally earn their recognition and appreciation. "Let me help," I offered, surprising both of us. "I'm doing well now. Really well, actually." There was a long pause before Mom responded. We couldn't possibly accept, but her tone suggested she could indeed accept my help. That conversation began a new chapter in our relationship. I started by covering Dad's medical expenses that weren't included in their insurance. Then, when they couldn't sell their house for what they owed, I helped them relocate to a nice rental condo in a safer neighborhood with better access to Dad's doctors. I set up an automatic monthly transfer of $2,300 to cover their rent entirely. When their 10-year-old car began breaking down regularly, I purchased a new Toyota Camry and put it in my name, but gave them full use of it. I added them as authorized users on one of my credit cards for emergencies and everyday expenses. Over time, these financial supports expanded in ways I didn't fully track. My success meant I could absorb these costs without significant impact to my lifestyle, and each time they expressed gratitude, I felt a warmth that had been absent from our relationship for years. Dad seemed genuinely appreciative, often thanking me during our now more frequent phone calls. "You've really made it, son," he'd say, which was the closest thing to praise I'd ever received from him. Mom was more complicated. She'd accept the help, but often framed it as something I owed them. "After all, we did. Raising you, it's nice to see some return on our investment." Still, I convinced myself that things were improving between us. We spoke more often, and they seemed interested in my life in a way they never had been before. I shared details about my promotion to senior engineering manager, my friends, and even tentatively about Amanda, the woman I had been dating for nearly 2 years. As my 32nd birthday approached, I decided to try something that had failed in previous years, inviting them to visit Seattle. They had always declined before citing expenses or commitments, but now those barriers were removed. I would pay for their flights, they had the car to drive around, and I wanted them to see the life I had built. "I'm planning a small party with friends and colleagues," I told them during a Sunday call. "It would mean a lot to have you both here." "We'll check our calendar," Mom said, neither committing nor declining. Dad remained silent on the matter. I pressed forward anyway, booking a private room at Canlis, one of Seattle's most prestigious restaurants, with stunning views of Lake Union. I invited 20 friends and colleagues, including Amanda's family who lived in Portland and were making the drive up specially. I reserved flights for my parents and sent them the confirmation, which they acknowledged with a brief, "Thanks, looks good." For weeks I allowed myself to hope. I pictured introducing my parents to my friends, to Amanda's parents, showing them my office campus, my condo, the city I'd come to love. Perhaps seeing my success firsthand would finally make them understand that I had made the right choice for myself all those years ago. 2 weeks before my birthday, I called to confirm their arrival details. "We're still planning on it," Mom said. "Though your father has a doctor's appointment that week, we might need to reschedule." Something in her tone made me uneasy, but I pushed the feeling aside. "Just let me know if anything changes," I said. "I'm really looking forward to having you here." As my birthday approached, I checked in several more times. Each call was met with vague assurances that they were still planning to come. I arranged for a car service to pick them up from the airport, made dinner reservations for just the three of us the night they arrived, and cleaned my guest room meticulously. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. The non-committal responses, the sudden appointments that might conflict, the lack of questions about the visit details. But I wanted so badly to believe that this time would be different, that they would finally show up for me in the way I had consistently shown up for them financially. The flight I had booked for them was scheduled to arrive Thursday evening, the day before my birthday. I had taken Friday off work to spend with them before the party on Saturday night. Everything was arranged perfectly. Or so I thought. My 32nd birthday dawned clear and bright, a rare, perfect Seattle morning in early June. I woke up feeling genuinely excited, something I hadn't felt about a birthday in years. My parents had never texted to confirm they'd boarded their flight the night before, but I assumed they were just busy with travel preparations. I planned to check their flight status after my morning run. I grabbed my phone to check the weather and saw several notifications. The first was from Amanda. "Happy birthday, handsome. Can't wait to see you tonight. Love you." Her warmth made me smile. We had dinner plans that evening at a small Italian place we both loved, just the two of us before the big party tomorrow. The second notification made my heart leap, a message in the family group chat. Mom, Dad, and me. They must be letting me know they'd landed, and were at their hotel, I thought. I opened it eagerly. "No one's coming to your party, grow up," read my mother's text. I stared at the screen, certain I had misunderstood. I read it again. The words remained unchanged, stark against the white background. A second message from Mom followed. "Your father and I decided to take a trip to Florida instead. We've been wanting to visit Diane and Frank in Tampa for ages. This seemed like a good time since we had these days blocked off already. You understand, don't you? You're a little old for birthday parties anyway." Diane and Frank were their friends from Chicago who had retired to Florida 5 years earlier. They were not family. They were not even particularly close friends. And my parents had chosen to visit them instead of coming to my birthday. There was no happy birthday, no apology for the last-minute cancellation, no acknowledgement of the money I'd spent on flights they apparently never intended to use. Just a dismissal of my celebration as childish and unimportant. I scrolled back through our previous conversations looking for any hint that they had been planning this all along. Nothing stood out. They had confirmed addresses for the car service. They had asked about the weather forecast for Seattle this weekend. They had given every indication they were coming. I glanced at my father's icon in the chat. He had read both messages but added nothing of his own. No defense of me, no separate birthday wishes, no apology for his wife's coldness. Just silent complicity as always. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I considered various responses. A part of me wanted to lash out, to remind them of everything I had done for them over the years, to demand the basic respect I deserved. Another part wanted to beg them to reconsider, to explain how much their presence would mean to me. Instead, I typed a single word: understood. I set my phone down and walked to the window of my condo. The Seattle skyline stretched before me, the Space Needle standing tall against the blue sky. Below, people went about their morning routines, unaware that my world had just shifted on its axis. I picked up my phone again and dialed my parents' number. It rang several times before going to voicemail. I tried my father's cell phone directly. Same result. They were deliberately avoiding my calls. I sent a text to my father alone. "Dad, can we talk about this?" It showed as delivered, but remained unread. The realization settled over me like a cold blanket. I had never been a priority to them. Not when I was choosing my career path, not when I was struggling through college alone, and not now, even after years of financially supporting them. The financial help I provided was accepted, even expected, but it had not purchased their respect or their love. I opened my photo gallery and found the image I had been waiting to show them in person, the view from the private dining room at Canlis, where my birthday dinner would be held. The Seattle skyline at Sunset Mount Rainier, visible in the distance on a clear day. The room I had paid a premium to reserve, because I wanted to impress them, to show them I had made something of myself despite their lack of faith in my choices. Amanda called while I was still staring at the photo. "Happy birthday again," she said cheerfully. "Did your parents arrive safely last night?" The question brought a lump to my throat. I hadn't told her yet. I hadn't told anyone. "They're not coming." I managed to say, my voice sounding strange, even to my own ears. "What? Why not? Is everything okay?" Her concern was immediate and genuine, so different from the callous dismissal I had received from my own mother. "They decided to go to Florida instead, to visit friends." The words tasted bitter as I spoke them. "On your birthday." "Without telling you until today." The disbelief in her voice confirmed what I already knew. This wasn't normal. This wasn't how loving parents behaved. Mom texted this morning saying, "No one's coming to your party, grow up." Like I'm some kid throwing a tantrum because I didn't get my way. There was a long pause before Amanda responded. "Peter, I'm so sorry. That's cruel." And it was. For the first time, I allowed myself to use that word to describe my parents' behavior, cruel. Not strict, not traditional, not old-fashioned. Cruel. "Do you want me to come over now?" Amanda offered. "I can reschedule my morning meetings." "No," I said, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. "No, I need some time to think. I'll see you tonight as planned." After we hung up, I sat down at my computer and opened my email. I searched for flight confirmation and found the itinerary I had sent my parents weeks ago. Then I searched Tampa in my credit card account, wondering if they had at least booked their own flights to Florida. What I found made the blood rush to my face. There was a charge from 3 months ago for 2 round-trip tickets to Tampa. They had been planning this Florida trip well before I ever invited them to Seattle for my birthday, and they had used my credit card to book it. Further investigation revealed charges for a beachfront condo rental in St. Petersburg, dinner reservations, and tickets to a show in Tampa. All on my credit card. All booked months ago. All deliberately hidden from me while they pretended to consider my birthday invitation. The betrayal cut deep. Not only had they chosen their friends over me, but they had used my own money to do it while lying to my face. And now they were celebrating in Florida, while telling me to grow up for wanting to celebrate my birthday with people I loved. Including them. The word "understood" that I texted back to my parents felt woefully inadequate for what I was feeling, yet somehow appropriate. It acknowledged receipt of their message, without giving them the satisfaction of seeing my pain. It was the period at the end of a very long sentence, one that had begun decades ago with their conditional love, and culminated in this moment of complete disregard. I sat motionless in my living room for nearly an hour, staring at nothing in particular as memories flooded back. The time I won the state science fair in 8th grade, and neither parent attended because Mom had a book club. The college graduation they attended with faces like stone. The Christmas I flew home with an expensive watch for Dad, only to hear Mom say it was flashy and impractical. Each memory carried the same theme: I was never quite enough, never quite worthy of their enthusiasm or pride. And yet I had continued to seek their approval. Worse, I had financially supported their lifestyle while receiving emotional scraps in return. The automatic rent payment, the car, the credit cards, all given in the hope that material generosity might somehow purchase the emotional connection I'd always craved. My phone rang, pulling me from these thoughts. It was Amanda again. "I know you said you needed space," she began apologetically, "but I couldn't stop thinking about you. How are you doing, really?" The genuine concern in her voice was like a contrast die, suddenly illuminating the stark difference between healthy relationships and whatever dysfunction I had with my parents. "I'm angry," I admitted, surprising myself with the honesty. "Really angry." You have every right to be, she assured me. What they did was incredibly hurtful. It's not just today, I found myself saying. It's a pattern. It's always been this way, and I've never stood up for myself. I just keep trying to earn their love by giving them more. There was a pause before Amanda spoke again, her voice careful. Peter, I've wanted to say something about this for a long time. The way your parents treat you, it's not normal. It's not healthy. They take advantage of your generosity and give so little in return. Why didn't you say something before I asked, though I already knew the answer? I tried in subtle ways. But you always defended them. You'd say things like, that's just how they are. Or, they sacrificed a lot for me growing up. I didn't want to push and make you feel like I was attacking your family. She was right. I had made excuses for their behavior for years. And not just to Amanda, to everyone who noticed the imbalance in our relationship. My friend Jason said something similar last year, I recalled. After Dad called asking for money for a new golf club membership, I got defensive and told Jason he didn't understand our family dynamic. A lot of people care about you and have seen this pattern, Amanda said gently. We just didn't know how to help you see it. As we talked, I opened my banking app and stared at the scheduled payments section. The $2,300 automatic transfer to my parents' landlord was set to process in 3 days. My finger hovered over the cancel button. I think I need to make some changes, I said to Amanda. What kind of changes? I've been enabling their behavior, financially and emotionally. It needs to stop. After we hung up, I canceled the automatic rent payment. The action was small, just a few taps on my phone screen, but it felt monumental. For the first time, I was saying no to their expectations. Next, I opened my email and began searching for any other financial connections between us. I found monthly transfers for their utility bills, automatic payments for their cell phones, insurance premiums for their health policies, all flowing from my accounts to theirs. I had set up these payments gradually over the years, each one a band-aid on our fractured relationship, each one accepted without question or gratitude. I didn't cancel everything immediately. That felt too reactive, too emotional. Instead, I made notes about each financial entanglement, determined to address them thoughtfully rather than in the heat of anger. Then I returned to my credit card statements, examining months of transactions. The pattern was clear and disturbing. Beyond the Florida trip, there were charges for expensive restaurants, clothing stores, even a weekend spa retreat, all in Illinois or Florida, all clearly personal indulgences for my parents. They were using my financial support not just for necessities but for luxuries they couldn't otherwise afford. And they had done so while lying to my face about attending my birthday celebration. The final straw came when I found a charge from 2 days ago, after they would have already been in Florida. They had used my credit card to upgrade their rental car to a luxury model. The same day my mother had texted me to grow up. Something snapped inside me. The simmering anger bubbled over into rage. Not a shouting, breaking things kind of rage, but a cold, clarifying fury that cut through years of emotional fog. I saw with perfect clarity what needed to be done. I called my credit card company and reported the cards I had given my parents as lost. New cards would be issued to me only. Then I contacted the auto insurance company and removed my parents from the policy on the car I had purchased. Finally, I emailed their landlord explaining that the automatic payment would not be continuing and providing the date of the final payment I had already made. My phone began buzzing with notifications almost immediately. Text messages from my mother. There seems to be a problem with the credit card. Then Peter, call us immediately. My father, son, we need to discuss something important. I silenced my phone and placed it face down on the coffee table. Their urgency wasn't about my birthday or my feelings, it was about their suddenly restricted access to my money. That reality was both painful and liberating. Amanda texted, asking if I still wanted to meet for my birthday dinner. Despite everything I did, this day that had begun with such hurt needed to end with some semblance of joy. I would be surrounded by someone who actually valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. Definitely, I replied. I could use some good company right now. As I got ready for dinner, I felt lighter than I had in years. The anger remained, but alongside it was something new, a sense of self-respect that had been buried beneath years of seeking approval I would never receive. Today, on my 32nd birthday, I had finally given myself the gift of standing up for my own worth. The morning after my birthday dawned with an unusual sense of clarity. While having coffee on my balcony watching early sunlight glint off Lake Union, I realized I needed a systematic approach to disentangle my finances from my parents. The impromptu actions I'd taken yesterday, canceling the rent payment and credit cards, were just the beginning. A complete separation required careful planning. I opened my laptop and created a spreadsheet titled Financial Independence Plan. Though the irony wasn't lost on me that this document was about creating independence for myself, not my parents. I listed every financial connection between us that I could identify. The rent payment already canceled. Credit cards already reported lost. Car titled in my name, but in their possession. Cell phone plan, I was paying for 3 lines. Health insurance premiums. I covered their supplemental policies. Utilities, automatically paid from my checking account. Streaming services. They used my accounts. Miscellaneous recurring payments. Subscriptions, clubs, services. Looking at the comprehensive list was sobering. Over the years, I had gradually assumed responsibility for nearly every aspect of their financial lives. What had started as helping with Dad's medical bills had evolved into funding their entire lifestyle, and they had come to expect it as their due. My phone had been buzzing consistently since yesterday. Overnight, my parents had left 5 voicemails and sent numerous text messages, each more urgent than the last. I hadn't responded to any of them yet, needing time to process my thoughts without their influence. I listened to the voicemails while continuing to work on my spreadsheet. My mother's voice was initially confused, then irritated, then outright angry. Peter, the credit card was declined at dinner. Call us back. We're trying to check out of our hotel, and there's a problem with the card. This is very embarrassing. I don't know what game you're playing, but this is completely unacceptable behavior. My father's messages were more measured, but carried an underlying tone of entitlement. Son, we need to sort out this misunderstanding about the finances. Call when you can. Peter, your mother is very upset. These kinds of surprises aren't good for my heart condition. Please call. The emotional manipulation was transparent, now that I was seeing it clearly for the first time. The references to embarrassment, the implication that my actions might affect Dad's health, these were tactics to control my behavior, to make me feel guilty for asserting boundaries. I finished my coffee and made my first call of the day, not to my parents, but to the auto leasing company. Since the Toyota was in my name, I arranged for it to be picked up from my parents' condo in Illinois upon their return from Florida. The customer service representative was helpful and didn't ask too many questions when I explained I needed to reclaim a vehicle from family members. Next, I contacted my cell phone provider and removed my parents' lines from my plan, giving them a 30-day notice before service would end. I did the same with the health insurance company regarding their supplemental policies, ensuring they would have time to arrange alternative coverage. One by one, I worked through the list, methodically removing my financial support while ensuring nothing would be cut off abruptly enough to create a genuine hardship. I wasn't trying to punish them. I was establishing necessary boundaries that should have existed all along. By midday, my phone was ringing nonstop. My mother had now recruited my Aunt Susan, her sister, to call me as well. Peter. Honey, your mom is beside herself. Aunt Susan began when I finally answered her call. They're stranded in Florida with no way to pay for things. What's going on? I explained the situation as calmly as I could, including the birthday text and the discovery that they had planned the Florida trip months in advance while lying about attending my celebration. Oh, she said, her tone shifting. I didn't know about that part. Barbara just said you were having some kind of tantrum and cutting them off without warning. I'm not having a tantrum, Aunt Susan. I'm setting boundaries after years of being taken for granted. They have their own retirement income and savings. They'll be fine without my subsidy. After hanging up, I received a text from my cousin Sarah, Aunt Susan's daughter, just heard what Aunt Barbara did. That's messed up. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing standing up for yourself. They've been taking advantage of you for years. This unexpected support bolstered my resolve. I wasn't crazy or selfish for expecting basic respect and appreciation from the people I had been so generously supporting. In the late afternoon, I finally decided to answer one of my parents' calls. I needed to explain my position clearly and directly, without the cushion of intermediaries or the distance of text messages. I picked up my father's call on the third ring. "Peter." Thank God, he began, sounding genuinely relieved. "We've been trying to reach you for 24 hours. "I know, Dad. I needed some time to think." "What is there to think about? We're stuck in Florida with no access to funds. The credit cards aren't working. The hotel made us put down a cash deposit." I cut him off, something I rarely did. "Dad, I know about the Florida trip. I know you and Mom planned it 3 months ago using my credit card. I know you lied to me about considering coming to Seattle for my birthday." There was a long pause before he responded. "It's not what you think, son. Isn't it? You booked a vacation to visit friends while letting me believe you might attend my birthday celebration. Then Mom told me to grow up for even wanting you there. How is that not exactly what it looks like?" I heard muffled sounds, as he presumably covered the phone to speak to my mother. When he returned, his tone had hardened slightly. "Your mother would like to speak with you." Before I could object, Mom was on the line, her voice tight with controlled anger. "Peter, I don't know what kind of point you're trying to make, but this behavior is childish and irresponsible. We are your parents." "Yes, you are," I agreed. "And that should mean something beyond having access to my bank accounts. It should mean you care about my feelings, respect my time and efforts, and at the very least acknowledge my birthday without telling me to grow up for wanting to celebrate with family. So this is all because we couldn't make it to your little party. People miss birthdays all the time, Peter. Adults understand that." Her dismissive tone confirmed everything I had been realizing over the past 24 hours. There was no recognition of her hurtful behavior, no acknowledgement of the lie about their plans, not even a belated birthday wish. "This isn't about missing my little party, Mom. This is about years of emotional manipulation and financial dependence. This is about you planning a vacation on my dime while lying to my face. This is about basic human respect, which you seem incapable of showing me despite everything I've done for you both." The silence that followed told me my words had hit their mark. When my mother spoke again, her voice had that dangerous quiet I remembered from childhood confrontations. "After all we've done for you, all the sacrifices we made, this is how you repay us. By stranding us in another state. By taking back things you freely gave. What kind of son does that?" I took a deep breath, refusing to be baited into a guilt-fueled response. "I'm the kind of son who finally recognizes an unhealthy relationship and does something about it. I'll make sure you get home safely from Florida, and then we need to have a serious conversation about the future of our relationship." I ended the call before she could respond, then immediately booked them, return flights to Chicago, texting them the confirmation, with instructions to take a taxi to the airport, which I would reimburse upon their return. It was the last financial support I planned to provide without clear boundaries in place. As evening approached, I felt emotionally drained, but somehow stronger. Amanda came over with takeout and a supportive ear. As we sat on my balcony watching the sunset, I shared my plans and the steps I'd already taken. "I'm proud of you," she said simply. "This couldn't have been easy." It wasn't, I admitted, but it was necessary. For the first time in my adult life, I had chosen my own well-being over my parents' expectations. The path forward wouldn't be simple, but it would be mine to determine. The next morning, my cell phone rang at exactly 9 o'clock. My parents had returned to Chicago late the previous night, and I knew this conversation was inevitable. Their names flashed on my screen, and I took a deep breath before answering. "Hello," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "We need to talk face to face," my mother said without preamble. "This situation has gone far enough." Part of me wanted to continue avoiding them to heal in private without their influence. But I knew that real resolution required direct communication. "I agree we need to talk, but I'm in Seattle, and you're in Chicago. Unless you're suggesting I fly out there, it will have to be a video call." There was a brief pause before she agreed to a video call that evening. I spent the day preparing myself, mentally outlining the points I wanted to make and the boundaries I needed to establish. This wouldn't be a negotiation or a plea for understanding. It would be a declaration of how things would be moving forward. At 7 o'clock Seattle time, I sat at my desk and initiated the call. My parents appeared on screen, sitting side by side on their living room couch, the same couch I had paid to have reupholstered last year, when Mom complained about the fabric wearing thin. Peter, my father, began his tone conciliatory. We've been doing a lot of thinking since yesterday. We realize there's been a misunderstanding about your birthday, and we're sorry if our message came across as insensitive. It was a non-apology, carefully worded to acknowledge my feelings without admitting any wrongdoing on their part. The "if" was particularly telling if our message came across as insensitive, as though the problem was my interpretation rather than their actions. It wasn't a misunderstanding, I replied calmly. You deliberately planned a trip to Florida months ago, used my credit card to pay for it, and lied to me about considering coming to Seattle. Then Mom told me to grow up for wanting to celebrate my birthday. Those are facts, not interpretations. My mother's posture stiffened. That's not entirely accurate, Peter. We did consider coming to your party, but Frank had a health scare, and we promised to visit when he was feeling better. Mom, I saw the booking confirmations. You reserved your Florida trip 3 months ago before I ever mentioned my birthday plans. A flicker of something embarrassment perhaps crossed her face before she recovered. Well, that's neither here nor there now. The real issue is your extreme reaction. Cutting us off financially, without warning, is vindictive and cruel. Is that how you see it, I asked? Because from my perspective, I've been voluntarily supporting 2 able-bodied adults who have their own income and savings. That support was given out of love, not obligation. When you showed such blatant disregard for my feelings, you demonstrated that the love isn't mutual. Of course we love you, my father interjected. You're our son. But you don't respect me, Dad. You don't value my time, my efforts, or my feelings. You treat my financial support as an entitlement rather than a gift. That's not a healthy relationship. It's dependence and exploitation. My mother's face flushed with anger. How dare you accuse us of exploiting you, after everything we did to raise you to provide for you? Yes, you raised me. That was your choice and your responsibility as parents. It doesn't entitle you to a lifetime of financial support, especially when you can't even show basic courtesy and appreciation. So this is it, she demanded. You're just cutting us off completely because of one little misunderstanding about a birthday party. I took a deep breath, reminding myself to stay calm and clear. No, I'm resetting our relationship to something healthier for all of us. I'm willing to help you transition to financial independence over the next 3 months. I'll cover your rent for that period while you figure out your next steps. But after that, you'll need to live within your means, like every other retired couple. And if we can't manage, my father's voice had a slight tremor. My medical expenses. You have Medicare and a pension, Dad. Millions of retirees live on less. You may need to downsize or relocate to a more affordable area, but you won't be destitute. My mother's eyes narrowed. And if we refuse, if we tell everyone how our successful son abandoned his aging parents when they needed him most, what will your friends think then, your precious Amanda? The threat was transparent and desperate. In the past, it might have worked. The fear of disappointing others, of being seen as a bad son, would have sent me scrambling to appease them. But not anymore. If you choose to misrepresent the situation to others, that's your decision. I know the truth, and so do you. I haven't abandoned you. I've offered a transition plan and ongoing emotional support. What I won't provide anymore is unlimited financial access without boundaries or appreciation. The conversation continued for nearly 2 hours, cycling through guilt trips, thinly veiled threats, moments of apparent understanding, and renewed demands. Throughout it all, I maintained my position with a calmness that seemed to frustrate my mother more than any anger would have. Eventually, my father sighed deeply. Peter, I think we need to take some time to process all this. It's been a shock, to be honest. I understand, Dad. It's a big change. But it's necessary for all of us. For the first time in the conversation, he looked directly at the camera instead of glancing sideways at my mother. For what it's worth, I am sorry about missing your birthday. That message Barbara sent. I should have spoken up. It wasn't right. The simple acknowledgement, however, belated, felt like a tiny crack in a very thick wall. My mother remained silent, her expression unreadable. "Thank you for saying that," I responded. "It means a lot." After we ended the call, I felt emotionally drained, but oddly at peace. Setting clear boundaries had been difficult, but liberating. Whether my parents would respect those boundaries remained to be seen, but I had taken the crucial first step. Later that evening, my phone chimed with a text message from my cousin Sarah. "Just got off the phone with Mom. Aunt Barbara has been calling everyone in the family complaining about you. Thought you should know most of us aren't buying her version. We've all seen how they treat you over the years." The support was unexpected but welcome. I hadn't realized others in the extended family had noticed the dysfunction in my relationship with my parents. Sarah continued, "Remember that Thanksgiving when you flew in from Seattle and they spent the whole dinner talking about how disappointed they were that you weren't a doctor? We all thought it was terrible. You've done so well for yourself, and they never seemed to appreciate it." We texted back and forth for a while, with Sarah sharing other instances where family members had noticed my parents' behavior toward me but hadn't known how to intervene. Her validation helped confirm that I wasn't overreacting or misinterpreting years of subtle emotional manipulation. In the weeks that followed, I maintained minimal contact with my parents while focusing on my own well-being. I started seeing a therapist to work through the complex emotions surrounding our relationship. Amanda continued to be a source of unwavering support, never pushing me to reconcile, but always listening when I needed to process my thoughts. At work, I channeled my energy into a major project that had been demanding attention. The emotional clarity I'd gained seemed to translate into professional focus as well. My team noticed and commented on my renewed engagement and decisive leadership. The path forward wasn't always smooth. My parents made several attempts to re-establish the old patterns, emergency requests for money health scares, that turned out to be minor guilt-inducing messages about how difficult their lives had become. Each time I responded with empathy, but maintained my boundaries firmly. It was a difficult balance to strike caring about their well-being without enabling unhealthy dynamics. But with each passing week, it became a little easier to distinguish between genuine needs and manipulative tactics. The car was retrieved from their driveway, as scheduled, leading to another round of angry calls that I weathered calmly. My mother threatened legal action at one point, claiming the vehicle had been a gift rather than a loan, but backed down when I produced documentation, showing it had always remained in my name. By the end of the second month, something unexpected happened. My father called me alone without my mother present. "I've been doing some thinking," he said, his voice softer than usual, "about everything that's happened. I want you to know I'm looking into part-time work to supplement our income. Found a position at the local library that might suit me." "That's great, Dad," I said, genuinely pleased. "How do you feel about it?" "Nervous," he admitted. "Been a long time since I had to interview for anything. But also, I don't know. Maybe a little excited too, to have something of my own again." It was a small step, but a significant one. For the first time in years, he was taking initiative rather than passively accepting circumstances or deferring to my mother's decisions. "I think you'll be great at it," I told him. "They'll be lucky to have you." The conversation shifted something subtle between us. We weren't close yet, not by any standard, but a door had cracked open that had been firmly shut for decades. 3 months after my birthday, a letter arrived at my Seattle condo. The envelope bore my father's neat handwriting, a rarity, as my mother had always handled family correspondence. Inside was a 3-page handwritten letter that began simply, "Dear Peter, I owe you an apology." The words blurred as unexpected tears filled my eyes. In 10 carefully written pages, my father acknowledged the patterns of behavior that had damaged our relationship over the years. He wrote about his own upbringing, with emotionally distant parents, how he had never learned to express affection or pride effectively, and how he regretted standing by silently while my mother's critical nature dominated our family dynamic. "I was wrong," he wrote. "Wrong to stay silent when you deserve support. Wrong to take your generosity for granted. Wrong to miss your birthday for a trip that could have happened any time. Most of all, I was wrong to let you believe, even for a moment, that I wasn't proud of the man you've become." The letter concluded with a request to meet in person, not to ask for anything, but simply to try to rebuild some form of relationship. He suggested meeting in Chicago, but added that he understood if I preferred neutral territory. After several days of reflection and a long conversation with my therapist, I agreed to meet my father at a coffee shop in downtown Chicago during a business trip I had scheduled the following month. I suggested meeting alone first, without my mother, to which he readily agreed. The cafe was busy when I arrived, but I spotted my father immediately at a corner table. He looked older than I, remembered more fragile somehow, but he stood when he saw me and offered a tentative smile. "Thank you for coming," he said as we sat down. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," he admitted, "but your letter seemed sincere." He nodded, turning his coffee cup in small circles. It was. Every word. "Peter, the last 3 months have been illuminating. Without your financial support, your mother and I have had to make significant changes. It hasn't been easy, but it's been necessary." He explained that they had downsized to a smaller apartment, created their first ever detailed budget, and were both working part-time jobs to supplement their retirement income. My mother was tutoring at an after-school program, and he had indeed secured the library position he'd mentioned. "The strangest thing is," he continued, "I think we're actually happier in some ways, more engaged with life, more appreciative of what we have." "And Mom," I asked carefully, "how is she handling all this?" His expression grew more complex. "It's been harder for her. Change always island. She still struggles to understand why you felt the need to, how did she put it, punish us so severely. But she's adapting. The tutoring job has given her a sense of purpose she was missing." "I wasn't trying to punish either of you," I said. "I was trying to break an unhealthy pattern, for all of us." "I understand that now," he replied. "I'm not sure Barbara fully does yet, but she's getting there. She agreed I should meet with you first, which is progress in itself." We talked for over 2 hours that afternoon. Really talked perhaps for the first time in our lives about his regrets as a father, about my career and life in Seattle, about Amanda, whom he expressed a genuine interest in meeting. When the topic turned to potential reconciliation with my mother, I was honest about my hesitations. "I need to know that things will be different," I explained, "that my boundaries will be respected, that I won't be valued only for what I can provide financially." "That's fair," he acknowledged. "More than fair. I can't promise immediate change. Habits of decades don't disappear overnight, but I can promise honest effort, from both of us." We agreed to a gradual rebuilding of our relationship. Regular phone calls, video chats, perhaps a visit to Seattle in the spring where they would stay in a hotel at their own expense. Small steps toward a healthier connection. Before we parted, my father reached across the table and placed his hand awkwardly on mine, a gesture so uncharacteristic that I nearly pulled away in surprise. "I am proud of you, son," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Not just for your success, but for your strength, for having the courage to stand up for yourself in a way I never could." Those words, so long withheld, meant more than any material gift ever could have. The process of healing with my mother took longer and required more direct conversations. When we finally met face-to-face a month later, the tension was palpable. But over time, and with the help of a family therapist, I insisted we consult together. We began establishing a new kind of relationship based on mutual respect rather than financial dependence. 6 months after my 32nd birthday, I helped my parents create a sustainable financial plan that preserved their dignity and independence while acknowledging the realities of their situation. I offered a one-time contribution to an emergency fund they could draw on, if necessary, but we agreed that regular subsidies would not resume. My relationship with Amanda deepened throughout this challenging period. Her unwavering support and clear-eyed perspective helped me maintain boundaries when old habits of acquiescence threatened to resurface. On New Year's Eve, beneath the Seattle Space Needles fireworks display, I asked her to marry me. She said yes without hesitation. When I called my parents with the news, my mother's first response was genuine excitement rather than questions about costs or logistics. It was a small but meaningful indication of change. The journey of the past year has taught me lessons I never expected to learn at 32. I discovered that true love isn't demonstrated through financial provision, but through respect, consideration, and genuine interest in another's well-being. I learned that establishing boundaries isn't selfish. It's essential for healthy relationships. Most importantly, I realized that my self-worth couldn't come from my parents' approval or anyone else's. It had to be built from within. The text message that arrived on my birthday, "No one's coming to your party, grow up," had been painful beyond words. But in retrospect, it was also a gift. It shattered the illusion that I could purchase my parents' love and respect through financial support. It forced me to examine patterns that had limited my emotional growth for decades, and it ultimately led to more authentic relationships with both my parents and myself. My 33rd birthday was celebrated differently. A small gathering at our home with Amanda, a few close friends, and somewhat surprisingly, my parents who flew to Seattle at their own expense and stayed in a modest hotel nearby. The conversation was sometimes awkward, the new relationship boundaries still being tested and defined. But when my father raised a toast to new beginnings, the sincerity in his voice was unmistakable. The road ahead won't always be smooth. Old patterns can resurface in moments of stress or conflict. But I now have the tools and clarity to maintain healthy boundaries while still nurturing the family connections that matter to me. If you're watching this and struggling with similar family dynamics, remember that love shouldn't require sacrificing your self-respect. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand firm in your worth, even when those closest to you fail to recognize it. Have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with family members? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might help someone else find the courage to make necessary changes in their own relationships. Before you go, hit that like button. If this story resonated with you, subscribe for more content about navigating complex family dynamics, and share this video with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to prioritize their own well-being. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, true love, whether from family partners or friends, should lift you up, not diminish you.